So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Killed Uzumaki Clan and Built Harem. So let's start the series. Sakura lived in a little apartment in the Shinjuku neighborhood. The young lady was soundly asleep in her bed. Abruptly, there was a high-pitched ringing in the space. She reflexively slammed her hand down on the alarm clock as soon as she opened her eyes. However, the ringing continued. It took her a few minutes to discover that the ringing was coming from her cell phone rather than her alarm clock. She picked it up and sat up. Suppressing a yawn, she asked, "Moshi Moshi?" She became irritated when she simultaneously discovered that her alarm clock read 5 a.m. It bothered her to be awakened in the middle of the night. "Haruno, the commissioner? Brigadier Inuzuka is this person. Do I have you awake?" On the other end of the call, a voice spoke. "It's 5:03. Of course you're waking me up," said the irate young police officer. "I'm sorry," said the young brigadier. The inspector cut in. "It doesn't matter, Kiba, get to the point. What happened? An old lady run over? A teenager stabbed?" "None of that," Kiba said. He claimed a third victim. She was found by an old drunkard barely half an hour ago. The brigadier's announcement caused the young woman to freeze. She hung up the phone and said, "Send me the address by text message. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She rose and walked to the restroom. She put on a black suit, a white blouse, and a brief shower before tying her hair back in a bun. She reached for her coat and put her service pistol in its holster. A third victim had been claimed by him. Taking her keys, the young woman walked out of her apartment. Kiba had just emailed her the address, so she got into her gray Mercedes and drove directly there. She didn't take long to reach the appointed location. The mark-off area was already crowded with reporters and bystanders. In an attempt to blend in with the crowd, the young lady snuck in. The media was familiar with her, in part due to the tragedy of her early years, but also because she had led the anti-crime squad in Tokyo for 3 years. Her community was destroyed in a single night when she was just 11 years old. The only survivor was her. The child who is a miracle. The youngster who was cursed. The offender was never apprehended. The happy, smiling little girl she had been then had not survived, even if he were still with us now. A chilly, quiet woman was all that was left of her. She never laughed, she never cried, and she never smiled. She hadn't even shed a tear when the tragedy was revealed. She didn't care that she was known as the robot. Nobody could stop her from pursuing her lifelong goal of apprehending villains like the one who had destroyed her town. At last, she found herself in front of Sergeant Inuzuka's yellow strip. "Good morning, Kiba," the young woman answered without emotion. Kiba said, "Hello, Commissioner," and lifted the tape into the zone. One of the peculiarities of the brigade was that you could change your first name to your last name, or your official to informal address without anyone noticing. Kiba took her to the body and motioned for her to follow him. A young woman in her 20s was the victim. Her abdomen was torn open, revealing her intestines and entrails as she lay splayed across a small lane. She had a terrified expression on her face. Sakura knelt next to the corpse. The young woman's face was the only part that was unaltered. There was a subtle flower smell all over the body. The smell of death? It smelled like something she'd smelled a lot before. The signature of the notorious killer who had already murdered 3 young ladies in the Shibuya district was inscribed in blood on her left forearm. JTR. "There you are, Sakura," a voice behind her confirmed. The young woman turned to face her leader, Shadow Ninja Nara, who was having difficulty staying awake, along with his 3 lieutenants, Ino Yamanaka, Naruto, and Naruto's comrade Uchiha. "Hello?" Sakura murmured. "JTR has struck again, I see." "Yes," said Ino. "And it's not a pretty sight." The commissioner was asked, "Where is the medical examiner?" "I'm here," a far-off voice exclaimed. Sakura discovered him kneeling next to the body after searching for him. "Ah, Hyuga-san," the policeman said as she walked up to him. "Tell me everything." Niji Hyuga, the forensic pathologist, looked at the woman and then went back to thinking about the body. The rigor mortis indicates that the murder occurred between 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning. He pointed to the handprints on the young woman's neck and indicated that the murderer had first strangled her. Then he disemboweled her after cutting her throat. It is 24 centimeters long vertically and has a very neat cut that is totally straight. Then he manually removed her intestines and entrails. He cut her lower abdomen and chest multiple times. He even broke her heart. After that, he undoubtedly signed off. The only reason he kills is to enjoy tearing her to bits. Sakura murmured. "Indeed," the physician said. After expressing gratitude to the physician, Sakura approached Tenten, the photographer. "Take photos from all angles," Close-ups and wide shots. Photos of the street. I'd like them by late morning if possible. She asked. The photographer said. Good. The photos will be on your desk at 8:30. Thank you. Then, Ino went up to the commissioner and inquired. What should we do? Kiba and Gara, remain here to collect the remaining samples and hints. Go question the man who found the body, Temari and Choji. Go back to the precinct, everyone else. A meeting will be set for 7:30. You have lots of time because of it. Okay, go ahead. The two secretaries, Hinata, a gorgeous but reserved brunette, and Karen, a self-assured woman with long red hair, welcomed the officers back to the brigade. All right, hello to all of you. Fit Hinata. Hello? Exclaimed Karen. Hello? Sakura said absently. Hinata, have you prepared what I asked you to? Yes, the brunette said, setting a pile of documents in front of her. Sakura said, thank you, and accepted them. Do you have any information on the last victim? Indeed. Eri Kurosawa. 23 years of age. Teacher in a primary school. Childless and unmarried. Sakura muttered. I see. Prepare a sheet of paper to add to the file. The murder photos should arrive this morning. Okay, I'll take care of it, the brunette replied. Karen! Sakura shouted out. Can you write a press release for witnesses? And make some coffee too. Good, the redhead remarked. After thanking them, Sakura took a seat at her desk. At her desk, Ino whispered to herself. If only we knew the meaning of this JTR. Sakura was also curious about what that odd acronym meant. Nothing had shown up in internet searches. Karen came in and set the coffees on each person's table. Sakura took one, got up, and watched the morning from the bay window. Her hair was down and her jacket was removed, giving her a laid-back appearance. JTR. As she watched the first rays of light emerge from behind Tokyo's enormous towers, she said. Taking a sip of the steaming coffee, she let her thoughts to wander, attempting to decipher the significance of the murderer's signature. Naruto was looking through the documents she had sent. Poor women, he muttered to himself. The young commissioner suddenly had a flash of insight. As she whispered, JTR? Jack the Ripper. Then she turned to face her coworkers and stated. That's all. JTR. Jack the Ripper. Is what it implies. Perplexed, Naruto inquired. Jack see what? In the end, the encounter happened quite swiftly. Around a big coffee table, everyone was seated. Sakura got up and started. Let's do a little summary before we begin the meeting. Specifically, you have files here for that use. Initially, the initial victim. Kaoru Nagata. 21 years old. Student of medicine. In a partnership. No kids. Discovered by a bystander in a Shibuya alleyway on Saturday, December 3rd, at approximately 7 a.m. Disemboweled, cut in the throat, strangled. Call it whatever you want. No indication of a fight. The signature of JTR on her right arm. She was on her way back from a pub where she worked part-time. It is thought that the murder occurred between 3:30 and 4 a.m. Next, a second victim. Yuki Sato. 24 years of age. Photographer. The bride. A son. Similar to the previous one, she was discovered in a Shibuya alley on Wednesday, December 7th, at around 6 a.m. by a hostess on her way home. The reason of death has not changed. One thing to be aware of is that she has a knife cut on her left arm. Most likely, the young lady attempted to retaliate. The location of the signature is constant. What she was doing in Shibuya that night is still unknown to us. A night out with pals, most likely. Around 3 in the morning, the murder occurred. Lastly, the final casualty. Eri Kurosawa. 23 years of age. Teacher in a primary school. Unmarried and childless. Discovered this morning, Monday, December 14th, in a different Shibuya alley at approximately 5 in the morning by an elderly alcoholic. You've already saw the devastation this morning, so I won't go into the specifics of his injuries. Just take note that, unlike the previous victims, his heart was taken out of his chest and then smashed on the ground. Again, we have no idea why she was in the Shibuya area. Additionally, the murder happened between 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning. In summary, the Shibuya district has seen 3 killings in 10 days. Women between the ages of 21 and 24 are the victims. The forensic specialist described the weapon as a type of extremely sharp knife. With a few slight variations, the murder's technique is the same. We have a serial killer on our hands who enjoys tearing his victims to pieces in the most horrific manner possible after strangling them. And we're having trouble. This murderer is excellent. He leaves almost little evidence behind. Gara, Kiba. Have you discovered anything? Nothing, the redhead replied. All the fingerprints have been wiped away, just like with the other two victims. There are no apparent clues. I see, said Sakura. Choji Tamari? Were you able to get anything out of the old man? Not really. The young inspector sighed. He just said that when he found the victim, he noticed a figure leaving the street. But that doesn't help us much. With a sigh, Sakura uttered. We've discovered a solution. Naturally, it's only a notion, but it seems very likely. Jack the Ripper is most likely what the signature JTR stands for. According to Naruto. You still haven't explained to us who this Jack was. Ino cried out. You really don't know who that is? What an ignoramus! Naruto yelled. Who are you calling ignorant? Anyway, Sakura firmly cut in. Naruto friend, give us a quick rundown on Jack the Ripper. The dark-haired man responded. Good. And got to his feet. Jack the Ripper was a serial killer who terrorized London in 1888. He disemboweled prostitutes in the Whitechapel district. He claimed at least 5 victims, but there may have been more. No one has ever discovered the killer's identity, his motive, or anything else. Under his student's appraising eyes, Naruto's acquaintance took a seat again. Ah, okay, Naruto said. Jack the Ripper. Of course I've heard of him. The killer is imitating the methods and even the pseudonym of this killer, stated the Shadow Ninja. There must be a reason for that. Does he want to compare himself to the great Whitechapel killer, or does he want to humiliate his victims by reducing them to the level of prostitutes? According to Kiba, none of that, in my opinion. I think he just picks up women at random off the streets and kills them. There's nothing rational about him. He's just sick. Tamari softly remarked. We don't know anything yet, Kiba. More crucially, a friend of Naruto interrupted. The media is beginning to lament our lack of action. Furthermore, I don't think the murderer will stop after 3 murders. Therefore, we must take action to apprehend this JTR. The commissioner declared. We're going to organize night patrols in Shibuya. Hinata and Karen are already preparing the patrol schedule. You really need to patrol Shibuya, in uniform and armed. Hopefully, that will deter the killer. Hinata burst into the room, looking ashamed. Commissioner, there's a horde of journalists outside. He's demanding your attention, she said. Sakura let out a sigh and disturbed the commander who was sleeping. Shadow Ninja! Go answer the questions from the shit diggers, the young woman commanded. I'm leaving. As he fell back asleep, the brunette muttered. Tamari offered to go respond to the reporters, sighing at the indolent commander. All right. You take the first shift tonight from 6 p.m. until midnight. Tamari, Gara, and Kiba, your Naruto friend. I, Naruto, Choji, and Ino will be in charge till 6 in the morning. Is that okay? Indeed. Everyone spoke at once. Sakura got home at about 7 o'clock at night. She was greeted by long, begging meows. The young police officer bent over and stroked her kitties. Sojiro and Kana were her 2 children. I'm sorry I abandoned you, she whispered softly. She went to shower after feeding her favorite fur balls. After taking a bite, she immediately went to bed. For her patrol, she had to be physically fit. With every sense alert, Tamari swerved through the mob. Older adults, teenagers. Shibuya was a true melting pot. Tamari adored this neighborhood because of its diversity and energy. It was difficult for her to accept that a serial killer was among this crowd. The young blonde made her way to the narrower, less traveled, and less secure alleys. The first murder street was crossed by her, followed by the second. The recollection of young Kurosawa's disfigured body sent a chill down her spine as she walked into the alley of the third murder. She experienced persecution. She jumped when a hand touched her shoulder. She instinctively reached for her rifle and aimed it at the individual behind her. She saw that the only person staring at her was Naruto. Naruto! You scared me! She exclaimed as she put her weapon away. The blonde lad said. You have some pretty violent reflexes. It's midnight. You can go home. Nothing unusual? Ah, at last. No, there is nothing to report. Tamari handed her blue jacket, which had the words, Tokyo Anti-Crime Brigade, written on the back, to Naruto, who put it on. Tamari said, Good luck! As she walked away. Thank you, and have a happy evening. For her patrol, Sakura donned the blue jacket of the brigade. She hadn't worn it in a long time. A friend of Naruto had handed it to her and remarked, "It brings back memories." Sakura, Naruto, and his friend joined the brigade nearly simultaneously. Soon after, Sakura was elevated to the position of commissioner. Her predecessor had retired early. Sakura had finally agreed when he appointed her with the sole explanation that Haruno is the only one with the guts to lead the brigade in this bunch of incompetents. She's seen more dead bodies than the entire brigade combined. The neighborhood was still awake in spite of the late hour. Several slightly inebriated young guys had approached the young woman and offered her a drink, but they were swiftly turned off by her gun and jacket. It seems that Jack the Ripper was reluctant to reveal himself. Sakura had a feeling that this murderer would punish her severely. The murderer had not yet been apprehended after 4 days of observation. Already, some were hopeful he had escaped the authorities. Sakura wasn't so sure, though. Until now, the murderer had consistently separated his victims by 4 days. Until he was duly arrested, she would not feel comforted. Sakura, Shadow Ninja, Temari, Kiba, and Nuda's friend were on patrol at 4 in the morning. Sakura walked slowly across the street where the first murder had occurred. Something didn't feel right. It's Sakura here. The street where the first murder occurred had nothing noteworthy to report. Into her radio transmitter she spoke. Understood, Temari's voice said. Nothing to report on the street of the third murder either. It took several long minutes before Kiba's terrified voice could be heard over the transmitter. Kiba is here. Hurry to the street adjacent to the one where the second murder occurred. He got him, and I'm not sure how he accomplished it. Sakura could feel the heat rising in her veins. Kiba was there when she fled to the street. A young girl's nearly unidentifiable body was visible at his feet. Damn it! Sakura cursed furiously. Disemboweled and carrying the signature, the poor woman was present. Sakura put her hand on the woman's arm while crouching next to the body. The corpse remained warm. She also saw that her neck was free of marks from strangulation. The murderer had just lunged at her and viciously stabbed her without bothering to strangle her. Sakura balled her fists. She had failed to stop a fourth murder. Torn between powerlessness and guilt, the remaining members of the squad stood in the street, staring at the young woman's lifeless body. Make a call to the medical examiner, the photographer, and the technicians. Sakura gave an order. Shadow Ninja said. Shouldn't we wait until tomorrow morning? We don't have time, Sakura yelled. This killer has no limits. He managed to slip right through our patrols. He's a pro. Calmly, the Shadow Ninja said. I am aware of. However, we must take our time. With a sigh, Sakura made the decision to call the technicians and the brigade nevertheless. Sakura watched everyone rushing around the poor girl in a pool of blood as she sat down on the sidewalk beside the body. Abruptly, she sensed a chilly sensation on her cheek. Karen was rubbing a can against her cheek when she glanced around and saw her. With a charming smile, the redhead handed her the drink. Atsukaresama. As she sat down next to her, she spoke. I'm grateful. However, I'm not sure if I deserve it, Sakura muttered. Don't say that, Haruno-san. You're really doing your best, Karen reassured her. I think you're amazing. You'll catch that killer. I'm sure of it. Sakura nodded in gratitude. She had never been complimented before. Karen gave her another grin before getting up to carry on distributing refreshments and consolation. Ino said as he went up to the commissioner. The killer must have been waiting in the building, that's why he got past the patrols, said the brunette. No, Ino. Following the young woman into the street, he stabbed her in the back. He then placed her on the ground and went back to work. He was aware of our proximity. He was rushing. Sakura reassured him that the wounds are considerably less clean because of this. Ino whispered. But how could he know the route of our patrols? Sakura sighed as she looked around at all the brigade officers strewn across the street. I prefer not to draw hasty judgments. The commissioner was hinting that there was a traitor in the brigade, and Ino froze. For the police officers, morning arrived swiftly. The JTR file now contained a fresh sheet of paper. Kanzaki Fujiko. 21 years old. A student in university. In a partnership. Around 4 a.m. on Friday, December 18th, the patrol discovered it in a Shibuya lane. When the body was discovered, it was still warm. Therefore, it is believed that the perpetrator just escaped. The idea of the killer's hurry is supported by the fact that the wounds are not as clean as those of the other victims. Instead of strangling him, The murderer stabbed him in the back. The medical examiner concluded that the blow was not deadly. Then he opened it down to her lower abdomen from the top of her throat. He lacerated and tore out her organs. The murderer's frenzy is suggested by this carnage. He is thought to have enjoyed killing her even more than the others did. Around 4 a.m, the murder occurred. The fact that they had failed to save the victim shattered the squad. They must have been completely unaware of the murderer. Sakura quickly skimmed the newspaper and focused on one sentence in particular. The anti-crime squad seems powerless against this serial killer. The young commissioner, Sakura Haruno, who had been highly recommended because of her childhood trauma, ultimately seems inadequate. Sakura saw that. Tokyo's Jack the Ripper has struck again. The girl gripped the newspaper more tightly. Naruto murmured to her, "Don't read that. It's rubbish." As he walked past, Sakura smashed her fist against the table and tossed the newspaper to the ground. She said, "There must be something. Something we're forgetting. He can't just pick them at random and slip through our surveillance." The youthful commissioner hid her face in her hands and sagged back in her chair. She had never had so much trouble with a criminal before. The idea of failing was too much for her to handle. "Shit. What the fuck?" she cursed, her mind spinning at an amazing rate. "Sakura," a voice said, breaking through her mental cocoon. The young woman turned to face Ino, her friend and coworker, who was anxiously staring at her. "Please go take a nap. You're not in any state to think," she said. "I'm fine," Sakura said him. "I'm going for a walk somewhere. I'll leave you in charge of the brigade. Call me if you have any problems." "You know? More." The commissioner had already seized her coat and made it to the door, so the young lieutenant was unable to resist any further. Wrapped in her coat, Sakura strolled through Shinjuku's winding streets until she came to a tiny cafe on a corner, sandwiched between a clothes store and a real estate firm. The manager greeted Sakura with a happy shout as soon as she entered. "Sakura-chan. It's been a while. Quickly take a seat." The young lady with the pink nose bowed her head and took a seat at the bar. She said, "Hello, Tsunade-san," in a whisper. "You appear worn out. With all those killings, it must be difficult. I'm relieved that it's all over." Tsunade, the cafe's owner, used to be a police officer. Indeed, it was she who had discovered Sakura dozing amid the bodies of the hamlet. She was the only person to whom Sakura had fully disclosed what had transpired that evening. According to Sakura's distinct recall, the policewoman stroked her hair and said, "You're too young to worry about things like that. Just pretend you've forgotten." In the eyes of everyone, the young girl had lost her memory as a result of the psychological shock. Sakura would probably never acknowledge it, but she was definitely motivated to join a police officer by the sight of the stunning Lieutenant Tsunade, her hair blowing in the breeze and a smile on her lips. As Sakura admitted, "I don't know what to do anymore. The killer is slipping through all our patrols. I'm afraid there might be a traitor. Tsunade-san, what would you have done in my place?" She only dared to fully confide in and express any kind of feeling to Tsunade. "I don't know," the manager said regretfully. "But I'm sure you'll figure it out. You're a remarkable detective. Take your time to think. Look closely at each victim, that's the key. And if you can't stop him, why not lure him to you?" Sakura said. "Huh? To attract him to me?" Tsunade grinned slightly as she nodded. After the commissioner's departure, the back's offices were nearly silent. Kiba groaned. All these horrible murders are depressing me." "What kind of person commits crimes like that?" asked Naruto. "It's horrible." "We are here because of people like that," Temari muttered. "This is the first time I've seen Sakura like this. She's completely exhausted, and yet she's still standing," Ino said. "That girl's a robot," complained Kiba. "Did you see that? No reaction to the mangled corpses, no sign of fatigue, no emotion. She's got a good figure, but she's not cute at all. She's downright terrifying." "Kiba," Hinata chastised him softly. "That's not very nice." "I don't see how she could be cute and sensitive after seeing her entire village exterminated before her eyes," said Ino. "But that doesn't stop him from having a minimum of consideration for his agents," Choji said. "Sakura would never leave one of her agents in danger," interrupted Naruto's friend. "You all know that." "That's true," Naruto affirmed. Abruptly, the young commissioner came in through the open door. She walked across the room and paused in the middle. "I have a plan to capture Jack the Ripper," she declared. "But be aware that it is extremely dangerous. That's why I'm not forcing anyone to take part." With suspicion, Ino questioned, What is this plan? Sakura explained. He's only talking to the brigade's women. I propose you act as bait. In civilian clothes, in Shibuya. That's why it's so dangerous. I'm not forcing anyone. If no one else does it, I will anyway. It's the only way I can think of. Of course, you'll be armed and equipped with transmitters and radios. That way, if you're attacked, you'll give the signal and we can corner him. The men will be in the streets, some in civilian clothes, others in uniform, ready to intervene. We'll have a better chance than trying to catch him with a patrol. The BAC policemen fell silent. Each considered the advantages and disadvantages. A few minutes later, Ino got up and said, I'll take care of it. Kiba exhaled. This is madness. I would participate too, Temari replied. You're crazy, said Gaara. A tiny voice said, There aren't many of you. I'll do it too. Hinata, who had just moved forward, caught everyone's attention. You can't be serious, Hinata! You'd get yourself killed! Kiba yelled. Kiba-kun. I'm just a secretary, but I'm still part of the police force. It's my job, said Hinata. Helpless, Kiba sat back down. Me too, Karen exclaimed. I won't be the only one left on the bench. Sakura nodded in gratitude and said, All right. In 3 days, we shall begin this procedure. We shall keep up our patrols as a security precaution till then. Choji cut in. Wait. Are you sure about this? You know you could also become a victim of JTR? Sakura attempted to soothe Choji, saying, Don't worry, Choji. We'll be prepared. As Nerd argues, more. It's up to the girls to choose for themselves. They've made their decisions. They know the risks involved, but they've decided to do it. You have no say in the matter. We're counting on you to be there and ensure our protection from a distance, the commissioner said with authority. Everyone fell silent. If the plan works, it would mean the killer is choosing his victims at random, and we're not sure about that yet, the shadow ninja warned everyone. Exactly, Sakura replied. And that's one of our goals too. To confirm whether the victims are chosen in advance or picked at random off the street. But in either case, there must be something the 4 victims have in common. That's why we have to find it. It could be physical, psychological, or even a past experience, a family connection, an acquaintance, but there has to be something. We have 3 days to scrutinize every aspect of the victims' lives and find that one thing that makes them victims of JTR. In her ears, the screaming continued incessantly. The young child cried out in fear as her father's body collapsed next to her. The killer was coming gently toward her. She was shaking all over. She fled the house and ended up in a foggy, dark lane. It wasn't her village. Out of the mist came a tall person. It had a long cloak and a top hat. Its fingers glistened like a keen knife. Sakura gradually retreated until she was pressed up against the wall. A small girl stood behind the killer's shadow and yelled, Don't beat dead children! As the dagger got perilously close to her throat. She continued, Sakura-chan. You mustn't forget. While holding Sakura's hand. She was still being followed by the murderer. Sakura attempted to flee the slaughter, but the young lady was already being struck by the dagger. The commissioner suddenly opened her eyes. She got up in bed and wiped her face, which was smeared with perspiration. A dream? She muttered. She briefly remembered her dream, but she was unable to interpret its significance. The massacre in her community was obviously connected to the first portion, but the second part was nonsensical. How come she shouldn't beat the dead kids? What was she expected to recall? It was ridiculous. Her cats, who were sleeping at the foot of her bed, raised their heads when the young girl got up and went into the kitchen. She went back to her room after drinking a glass of water. Taking her phone off the nightstand, she looked at her texts. No fresh messages. The time was 4:09 a.m. Choji, Nerdu, Ino, and Shadow Ninja were on patrol. Sakura raised the phone to her ear and dialed Nerdu's number. Moshi Moshi? Sakura? The voice of the blonde lad said. The policeman said. Nerdu. Are you on patrol? Indeed. Why? Are everything going smoothly? According to the blonde man. Yes. Nothing to report. Sakura. I see. That's good. She added. Nerdu said. Sakura. You had a nightmare, didn't you? That's none of your business. Sakura stated icily. When you call at hours like this to say so little, there's no doubt about it. Do you want me to come give you a hug and help you fall back asleep? Laughed the young man. Baka. I'm returning to my bed. Well done, patrol. As she hung up, she complained. With a sigh, Sakura returned to her bed. No matter how much she twisted and turned, she was unable to fall asleep even closing her eyes. She stood up once more and started dressing. After getting ready, she strolled down to the street. It was a chilly night. In the next few days, snow would fall. Shibuya was the destination of the commissioner's steps. Jack the Ripper was on her mind all the time. She was thinking about him all the time. At last, she reached the street where the initial murder had occurred. She examined the location where the body had been discovered. The starry winter fleece was shining brightly, and she lay down to see what the victim had probably seen before passing away. It was a lovely sight to pass away in. Sakura heard a cry abruptly. "It's Naruto here. In the street where the first murder occurred, I believe there is another body," a voice from the shadows said. Then Sakura noticed the flashlight's beam of light passing over her. "Sakura!" Naruto exclaimed in horror. Sakura looked at Naruto disillusionedly and sat up. "Oh, you, the blonde stumbled. The commissioner groaned and asked, "Is it wrong to shout like that?" As the lieutenant said, "What are you doing here? You're crazy. I thought you'd been killed by JTR too." "You talked to me on the phone an hour ago, Baka. I walked outside to investigate the crime scene as I couldn't sleep." Naruto informed his fellows via radio that the alarm was unfounded and went back to the commissioner. "So what were you looking at while lying there?" inquired he. Sakura reclined and whispered, "I was wondering what the victim could have seen just before dying." "I understand." Sakura froze. She had just noted the subtle aroma of lilies on the third body. It smelled so familiar. Is it possible that every victim was wearing the same scent? Or was the murderer wearing perfume? Maybe it was just his new washing detergent smell, though. Sakura exhaled deeply before saying, "Too exhausted to think. I'm heading home. I wish you luck in everything." His lieutenant grumbled. "Honestly, you got up for so little." "So little?" However, the greatest things originate from little, unimportant things. The young woman turned on her heel and whispered. Sakura had forgotten that morning that she wasn't at work. She usually didn't take time off during such significant inquiries, but she was forced to do so this time. In addition, she would attempt to woo Jack the Ripper tonight, which was the big night. However, because of her family history, her superiors mandated that she receive psychological counseling. She had been unable to avoid her twice-monthly visit. She detested visiting that place. The young commissioner changed into civilian clothing and departed since she didn't appreciate being viewed as unstable. Dr. Marino's office had always seemed impersonal and frigid to the young woman. There, she didn't feel at ease. A psychiatrist inquired, "Did any memories come back to you?" "No. All I can recall are a few scenes from my dreams and waking up in the hospital." For so long, Sakura had been telling this falsehood that she was beginning to believe it. She remembered, of course. Something like that is impossible for her to have forgotten. When Tsunade discovered her in her home, sobbing next to her mother's corpse, she asked her what had transpired. Sakura had told her everything, including the victim's order and the identity of the murderer. After that, Tsunade had brought her to meet with the 6 other BAC members, and they had a lengthy discussion about what to do. In order to keep her safe, they had ultimately made the decision to conceal the truth. They had all vowed to keep their mouths shut. They had also fulfilled their pledge. Nor would Sakura shatter it. Pulling him out of his recollection, the doctor's voice said, "Are you still having nightmares?" The rose muttered, "Yes. But recently, they've been mixing with other things," remembering her nightmare from the day before. The man persistently asked, "Anything else?" "The Shibuya killings. Jack the Ripper is here," Sakura revealed. "I see. This must be worrying you a great deal," the physician remarked. "Yes, rather," the commissioner said. He said, "Okay. I think that'll do. In closing, take care." Sakura said, "Goodbye," and shook his hand. She stepped out into the hallway and checked her watch, which showed 11 a.m. At 11:30 she may have arrived at the brigade. The offices of the brigade were a little tense. The evening's plan was supported by all the girls and a few boys, but the majority of the boys were against it. "We're just as much police officers as you are, even if we're women," Tamari yelled incredulously. "But being women has nothing to do with it. Even if you were a man, I would be worried," Kiba angrily said. "Admit that the only problem is that Hinata is participating and you're worried," Ino yelled. Kiba scowled and made a feeble protest. "Not at all. Simply said I believe Hinata is in a less powerful position," the brunette urged. Don't worry about me, Kiba-kun. I'll be fine. Hinata or not, it's still dangerous. Kiba continued. Karen sighed. Guys, can't you just accept it? It's going to happen anyway. Choji cried out. Not if the commander objects. Everyone's attention was drawn to Shadow Ninja, who was nodding off on a chair and seemed unconcerned by the argument. I trust Sakura, Naruto said. If she thinks it's a good plan, then it is. Giant Kiba yelled. We're cannon fodder for her. Ino snapped back. Don't talk about Sakura like that. From a chair, Naruto's pal observed the spectacle with a blank expression. As the dispute went on, he let out a long sigh. Unnoticed, Sakura entered the brigade. She soon became aware of the disagreement, and moved to take a seat next her captain. Kiba bellowed. That's a lousy plan. With a firm objection, Temari said. It's our only hope. Sakura demands the Shadow Ninja. Is this a pure strategy? With one eye open, the Shadow Ninja looked about the gathering. No. However, he simply needs to adjust to it. He closed his eyes as he spoke. Sakura got to her feet and said loudly. That's sufficient. The argument is over. As I've already stated, don't participate if you don't want to. Everyone froze in shock at the commissioner's unexpected arrival. She softened a little and asked, Any new information on the commonalities among the victims? No, not a lot. Ino grabbed a piece of paper from her desk. They are all Japanese, in their 20s, frequent patrons of a bar. One of them even works as a server there, and they are all fairly tall, averaging 1.65 meters. Naruto complained. Basically, it doesn't get us very far. Not really, Ino said as she took a seat at her desk. Sakura remarked. The bar is crucial information, investigate it. That bar? Naruto inquired, glancing over Ino's shoulder at the address. It's super famous. Shirakuro. You wouldn't believe how many regulars it has. I am also familiar with that pub. Put Karen in. I frequently visit there. Twice a week, at minimum. I see, Sakura remarked reflectively. The big time has come. All of the officers, dressed simply, had agreed to meet in front of a tavern close to the police station. Sakura had her hair in an untidy bun and was wearing a tight-fitting black strapless dress and black high heels. She had put on makeup to give herself a passable appearance. Her weapon was concealed in a holster fastened to her thigh. Everyone's eyes were wide when she arrived at the gathering spot. The commissioner rarely wore clothing like that. Every other girl was dressed to the nines as well. The young lady with the pink hair inquired, Is everyone ready? The agents all said, Yes. Together. All right, tune your radios to frequency 7. In case of attack, press the transmitter. Everyone knows their circuit. Disperse, announced the Shadow Ninja. Everyone started toward him. Sakura moved carefully through the throng, being careful to occasionally go through narrow passageways to give the murderer opportunities. Despite her suspicions that she wouldn't be attacked. All of them were known to the murderer. He was aware of their whole strategy. Now she knew for sure. He would either not attack or would attack in response to provocation. He wouldn't pursue her anyway. It was too dangerous. Sakura was prepared to help Hinata or Karen. She had ensured their route wasn't too remote because they were the easiest targets. Hinata checked her timepiece. It was 3 in the morning already. The young brunette was not at all comforted. She shuddered at the men's looks on the street. She just wanted to get home. She had to maintain her strength, though. She would see it through because she had offered to be bait. Her high heels made her wobbly as she walked on. Her gut clenched with fear, but she had to resist. She was suddenly startled by a sort of panting. Someone was standing behind her. Just as she turned around, 2 strong hands clamped down on her neck. Hinata's eyes dilated in fear, and she made a futile attempt to escape the stifling hold. Her radio transmitter and earphone were torn out by the attacker. Hinata attempted to scream, but her voice was stuck in her throat. She was out of breath. She started to breathe more shallowly. She rested her arms on her chest, exhausted, and allowed the man to do his duty. She felt a tear slide down her cheek. She thought, Goodbye, everyone. Kiba would be furious with her for participating in the mission. Kiba. She wanted to say, I love you. To him. Only once. For the final time. A shadow suddenly materialized in the street and kicked her assailant magnificently, causing him to collapse backward. After being knocked to the ground, Hinata's throat was abruptly released. She could hardly breathe because she was so weak. Then she noticed Sakura, her savior, approaching the murderer with a revolver in hand. Police! Don't move! she yelled furiously. However, the assassin charged directly at the commissioner, who then pulled the trigger. The man was only slightly wounded by the bullet, but he was able to use a knife to pierce Sakura's arm. The commissioner chased after the man without displaying any signs of suffering. Then the brunette noticed Kiba and Ino's silhouettes sprinting in her direction. "Hinata!" said Kiba in horror. She wanted to reassure him that she was okay, but she kept her mouth shut. "Breathe, Hinata," the brunette said. "That's not good. He must have tried to strangle her." Ino gritted her teeth. She was having trouble breathing. The young Hyuga coughed and cleared her lungs after the blonde grabbed her companion by the shoulders to sit her down and slapped her hard on the back. The secretary inhaled deeply. He removed his brigade jacket, which Kiba draped over her shoulders. He muttered as he drew the brunette closer to him. "Never again frighten me like that." Hinata exhales against him. "I'm sorry." Sakura ignored the blood dripping down her shoulder and fled as quickly as she could. The murderer couldn't be that far away. A few alleyways away, she saw him. From there, she could shoot him. She fired, aimed, and missed once more. She muttered, "Damn it!" and resumed her sprint. Pressing her radio button, she yelled, "Naruto! Karen! He is on his way to your region. Keep him from getting away." "All right," the two voices responded. Then Sakura fell flat on her face in the street after tripping over a pebble. Temari and Shadow Ninja materialized in the street at this precise moment. "Sakura!" murmured the Shadow Ninja, assisting her in standing up. "You're just in time," the commissioner said as she took off her vest. "You're the one with the first aid kit, bandage it up for me." After looking at the policewoman's injured arm, Temari yelled, "It is more than a little cut. The incision is deep and the bleeding is heavy. You must visit the hospital." Sakura shouted angrily, "We don't have time. Jack the Ripper is slipping through our fingers." Instead, they resumed their desperate pursuit once Temari became silent and hastily wrapped her superior's wound. Then they found a Naruto who was out of breath. Sakura said, "Naruto, did you catch him?" The blonde responded, "No, he stabbed me in the leg," indicating his injured leg. Karen pursued him. "Damn it," young Haruno murmured. "Temari, heal Naruto. Shadow Ninja, come on, let's try to catch him." The pink-haired girl and the brunette dashed to the alley Naruto had indicated. Karen was then discovered on the ground. "Karen!" Sakura shook her head. The young redhead opened her eyes and moaned a little. She said, "Haruno-san," in a feeble voice. Sakura hurriedly inquired, "Where is JTR?" Karen sat up and mumbled, "Sorry. He hit me on the head, I fainted." Sakura gave the order, "Go back to the brigade with the others, I'm just going to check." Sakura rose and bolted from the alley. She made multiple rounds of the area, but all she saw was the chilly, deserted night. The commissioner of police let out a furious cry and dropped to her knees in the street. "JTR, how long will you continue to evade me?" Her fists clenched, she stood there still for a moment. Then she got up and gave the wall a punch. "Jack the Ripper, have fun with your freedom. Since I'll catch you. Whatever the case. Even if it means flipping heaven and the sea. I will track you down," shouted the policewoman to the December 22nd starry sky. "It was truly madness. I told you so," Kiba remarked, setting coffee cups in front of each agent. "It's one of the risks of the job," Temari explained as she covered Karen's head with an ice cube-filled cloth. "But the plan didn't work," Naruto's friend moaned, offering him shoulder support. With a dejected expression, Ino glanced at each member. "I didn't think there would be so many injured," she said in a sorrowful whisper. "At least there were no casualties," Naruto added with optimism as he sat down with the assistance of a buddy. "Sakura's injury is quite severe," acknowledged Temari. "I hope she goes to the hospital." Temari was embraced by a shadow ninja who murmured in her ear, "Everything will work out." Abruptly, the door opened, revealing the commissioner, her arm oozing with sticky blood, walking slowly. She was on the verge of passing out when a friend of hers helped her sit down. In a panic, Naruto's buddy exclaimed, "She's lost a lot of blood. Call an ambulance." "No need," sighed Sakura. "I'm fine." "Don't talk nonsense. Look at yourself," Naruto remarked. Sakura said, "And what about you?" Naruto became quiet. A lemon juice was set out in front of Sakura by Kiba. "Drink this," It will give you strength, suggested the man. Sakura murmured, "Thank you, Kiba," as she lifted the glass to her mouth. The wounded woman scowled at the drink's sour taste after taking a sip. Sakura set down her drink after finishing it and closed her eyes. "Sorry for dragging you into this. It seems Jack the Ripper is smarter than we thought," she said. "I saw his face," declared Karen. Sakura sat up straight and gave her secretary a startled look. She said, "Did you see it?" Indeed. He was a tall man with gray eyes, snow-white hair, and pale skin. "Karen, hurry up and make a composite sketch." Aye. Nerda's friend said. "No, nothing at all for you," which stopped him from getting to his feet. Nerda jeered. "You're going to the hospital." "You're coming too," his pal with Nerda told him. As Nerda argues. "More." "No buts," roared Nerda's companion. "You two are so stubborn. Take better care of yourselves." Nerda let himself be dragged to the car while sighing at his overly protective friend. Sakura was less inclined, but she also had no other option. It had been 2 days since the unsuccessful operation. Sakura had given the order to stop the patrols. They served no purpose. A composite sketch of the offender had appeared on a wanted poster. There was a suspect whose criminal history closely matched the killer's profile, and special agents were watching his home, so there was no chance that he would commit another murder. Sakura was only a shell of her former self in spite of this. Her arm was stitched up 12 times. She walked around the offices. Despite the fact that the man's face matched Karen's sketch, she wasn't certain he was the offender. Or maybe she was just being obstinate. Since there was no longer any danger, JTR's arrest was imminent. There was nothing else she could do to apprehend the actual killer. In addition, it was December 24th. For the week, a lot of agents had taken time off. Sakura didn't. Christmas would be spent by herself. Again. Nearly everyone had left to spend Christmas with their significant other by 7 p.m. Sakura was absorbed in her thoughts as she sat at her desk. A voice behind her, whom she recognized as N's friend, inquired, "Are you planning to spend the evening here?" The commissioner muttered, "Who knows?" "Sakura," lamented Nerda's pal. "Don't just stay like this." "I'm fine," Sakura said him. "Go join your girlfriend." "To be honest, only Nerda is waiting for me," said the rather embarrassed Nerda friend. Sakura grinned to herself. Her 2 lieutenants were more than partners, she suspected. So they'd finally told each other how they felt? Excellent. "I see," the officer remarked. "Don't keep him waiting, then." The brunette started to say something, then shut his mouth and said hello. "All right, I'm leaving. Sakura, have a happy Christmas." Sakura listened to the door close without responding. She was by herself. After spending some more time at her desk, she eventually got up, collected her belongings, and departed. Sakura's cherished kitties welcomed her. One by one, she gave each of them a hug to ease the loneliness that tormented her each year. She switched on the television and reheated some instant noodles. Even if there were only corny soap operas on, it was preferable to sitting around feeling lonely and doing nothing. Sakura chose to go to bed after spending 2 hours bored in front of the TV. She closed her eyes and snuggled between her warm sheets. Her head was filled with images. Her mind would not stop working. This frequently occurred when she came upon issues that were extremely complicated. But she was worn out from this one. Sakura tried to go to sleep so she could get some rest, but the investigation's specifics kept coming back to her. He claimed a 3rd victim. She was found by an old drunkard barely half an hour later. He even crushed his heart. Then he probably ended up signing it. Jack the Ripper was a serial killer who terrorized London in 1888. He disemboweled prostitutes in the Whitechapel district. I think he just picks up women at random off the streets and kills them. Come quickly to the street next to the one where the second murder took place. I don't know how he did it, but he got him. And if you can't stop him, why not attract him to you? That would imply that the killer chooses his victims at random, and we're not yet sure about that. They are all in their 20s, they are all Japanese, they are all regulars at a bar. I go there often. At least twice a week. No, he stabbed me in the leg. He hit me on the head, and I fainted. She's lost a lot of blood. Call an ambulance. I saw his face. He was a tall man with pale skin, snow-white hair, and gray eyes. Sakura's eyes snapped awake. She had just been reminded of something. Leaping out of bed, she ran to her suitcase and removed her JTR file from its top. On her desk, she opened it and removed all the pictures of the necks of the victims. Additionally, a picture of Hinata's neck was included. Sakura arranged them side by side. "That's it," she said as she snapped a picture of Hinata's punch against her fingers. Two big hands were visible on the brunette's neck, encircling her throat. The hands on the necks of the other victims, however, were obviously smaller. Like the hands of ladies. Therefore, were the individual who killed the other victims and the one who attempted to kill Hinata two distinct individuals? What if she thought about the possibility that the phantom troop contained a traitor? Both her and Nerda had sustained injuries during the pursuit. Why then? And that smell? Sakura's eyes became wide as the machine's gears gradually came into alignment in her head. She had been completely mistaken. "I'm spending Christmas Eve in Shibuya," she realized as she glanced at her watch. It was 3:16 already. She hurried to her closet, took out some clothes, and put them on as quickly as she could. She needed to go quickly. Very fast. If not, the following day would be dedicated to the mourning of another Jack the Ripper victim. The young police officer sprinted toward Shibuya with all her strength. She had to continue despite the frigid wind burning her face. Her hair, which she hadn't had time to tie back, flew wildly over her face, and her breathing came in rapid spurts. When Sakura eventually made it to the heart of Shibuya, she was fatigued. The place was crowded as usual. Sakura searched for the Shirokuro bar. With the mob that had collected in front of the building, she was able to locate it really fast. As she got closer, she saw the few 20-something girls leaving the bar. How might she locate the ideal one? One of them walked by abruptly, and the young woman with the pink hair could definitely smell the lily perfume she had detected at the scene of the crime. Sakura whirled around and noticed the woman walking toward a narrow alley. Terrified, Sakura froze and chased after her. Then she noticed someone wearing a mask, sunglasses, and a hat to conceal their face. Sakura balled her fists and slipped as stealthily as she could into the alley. The young woman with the perfume moved quietly, as if she didn't care. Like his past victims, the alleged murderer lunged at her and attempted to choke her. Sakura shouted as she withdrew her pistol and aimed it at the assailant's back. "Police! Let this woman go right now!" Sakura heard the criminal's muffled sneer as he let go of the woman, who fell to the ground unconscious. Well, Haruno, Commissioner," JTR's voice said. Sakura said, "Drop your weapon, put your hands on your head and come towards me," without lowering her weapon. The masked man obeyed, setting his dagger down, turning, putting his hands on his head, and coming toward the commissioner. She was now just a meter away from him. Sakura brought her weapon down. "Take out what?" Abruptly, the bandit reached into his coat for a second knife and at Sakura. The young police officer escaped with a cut on her cheek after barely avoiding it. However, the criminal had already left by the time she stood up. Sakura swore and started to pursue. She wouldn't lose this time, but it would be similar to the other night. He wouldn't have much time to get away because Sakura was immediately behind him. She was led into a dead end by the criminal, who then spun around to surprise Sakura. Sakura flinched, so the blade missed her this time. The policewoman's pistol flew when her opponent stabbed her in the hand while she was distracted. Sakura took a tiny penknife out of her back pocket and pointed it at her attacker after realizing she was in a precarious situation. Sakura sighed. "Now we're evenly matched." "Do you intend to murder me? For a police officer, that is incorrect. However, I wonder whether you are the one who destroyed your community because of the resolute gleam in your eyes." "Leave my village out of this," Sakura said as she lunged at her opponent, who used his own knife to deflect the hit. "Oh dear. But she's putting up a fight," the murderer said in jest. Sakura whispered, "I know who you are," and tried one more. Curious, the murderer asked, "Oh really? Who am I?" Sakura was too busy avoiding the strikes to respond. She got struck in the shoulder abruptly. Sakura stepped back while continuing to hold her knife in front of her, announcing, "I'm not bluffing, I never would have thought you were a killer, Karen." After a minute of inaction, the murderer erupted in laughter. The secretary's red hair and white face were exposed as the mask, hat, and glasses were hurled to the ground. She grinned and said, "I've been found out, it seems." There was a wild light in her eyes. Karen wasn't here. Not the person she was familiar with. Then the redhead leaped at Sakura, but the commissioner deftly avoided her. Karen questioned, "What put you on the right track, Haruno-san?" "It's easy. The offender could only have been a phantom troop member because he eluded our patrols. That made the options more limited. Furthermore, the victim's throats and Hinata's throat were not the same size. You thought you had an opportunity to clear yourselves when I proposed the bait plan. To kill Hinata, you hired a hitman. You didn't anticipate his failure, though. He got away, hurting me first, then Nerda. But you were only rendered unconscious? Why? The hitman would have killed you without hesitation. He couldn't harm him, though, because he was his employer. The policewoman added. All 4 of you are going to Shibuya under arrest. The redhead started laughing once more, but it wasn't in her eyes. Their bloodlust blazed. Sakura grabbed her wrist and applied a vicious arm lock, throwing her against the wall, taking up her weapon, and putting it against her temple as the criminal pounced at her former supervisor. Sakura was going crazy from the fight's adrenaline. She was aware of it. She was able to shoot. Without even the tiniest hesitation, she could defeat Karen. But she was tugged back by the redhead's eyes. They became terrified and abruptly lost their animosity. As she fell down the wall, the young woman groaned. Haruno-san. I'm sorry. But Sakura did not let go of her weapon. She handcuffed the redhead's wrist to a pipe and moaned. That's what I thought. A split personality. Sitting across from her, Sakura observed the woman huddled against the wall. Apologies. I'm so sorry. Suppressing a few sobs, she repeated endlessly. Ignoring her weeping, the commissioner inquired. How long have you been like this? There's always been an angel, a demon, and me, the secretary whispered. But until now I managed to keep him in check? But everything changed. A month ago. Sakura pressed. What happened? A month ago? Isn't that the date your boyfriend died, drowned? It was you. Tears were streaming down Karen's face as she started to shake all over. Although my partner was employed at Shirokuro, he had aspirations of becoming a perfumer. He had created a cologne specifically for me. He was incredibly gifted. That night I arrived home early. I also noticed him talking to someone else on the phone. Whispering lovely nothings that he only ever whispered to me. He was setting up a meeting. I went out of control. Next. Suddenly, I was holding the bottle of the perfume he had made for me. He was laying in the center of the living room when I woke up. The smashed bottle was in my hands, and blood was all over the floor. The room was filled with the aroma of white flowers. I was unsure about what to do. I tried to forget the whole affair after tossing the body into the sea. However, I recognized the perfume's aroma when I returned to that bar. 4 times. I go crazy when I smell that perfume. As the brunette related her tale, Sakura said nothing. She pictured the young secretary killing the mistresses of her dead boyfriend. She would never have believed it a few days ago. Karen lowered her head and said, Haruno-san? You're going to take me to the brigade, aren't you? Obviously, Sakura answered. I can't let someone so dangerous go free. The offender said, I'm going to be sentenced to death, aren't I? Sakura gazed at the shattered lady before her. After her village was massacred, she felt as though she was witnessing herself as a child. Sakura softly muttered, I'm afraid so, not wanting to aggravate her former coworker anymore. Once more, tears ran down the redhead's face. If only there was a weapon capable of killing only the shadow within me, she moaned. I'm afraid that's not feasible. Sakura-san, am I allowed to call you that? Karen's voice was shaking as she asked. At this point, Sakura remarked, grinning bitterly at her. Sakura-san, I need you to do me a favor. It will take a while for me to be executed. Sakura-san, can you murder me now, please? Please, put an end to my pain. The redhead bowed as low as she could and begged. At this request, the commissioner froze. She said, Do you want to make me a murderer? Karen accused her, saying, Aren't you already? What gives you the right to say that? Karen remarked, Your eyes, as she looked directly into the commissioner's eyes. You have the same eyes I have when I kill. Sakura gave her a flattering glance. She had surmised that she had already killed just by looking into her eyes. That's true, Sakura acknowledged. But probably not in the way you think. Describe the actual events of that day for me. Your secrets will be protected, and I shall die. Takeshi Haruno, my father, had always had psychological instability. However, he has completely lost the reason this day. He made a tour of the village and shot everyone. Then, just in front of my eyes, he killed my mother. I don't understand what this passing is about. But in my main, he had this couteau. It was or will be tuer. Then I didn't hesitate. Without even the slightest hesitation, I took it. The BAC of France has decided to expose me to its risks and dangers. Before I died, my mother told me something. Sakura, you must live. You must definitely stay alive. Our Lord J. Viscount. Perhaps even if I don't deserve it. Told by the cold, Sakura looks up at the sky and asks if her mother was tired of her. You really are an incredible person, Karen Surit. Perhaps. Sakura Sufla. Whatever it is, I won't let you go. Perhaps life is unfair, but death is far less. If you truly want the death, then you will provide this service. Karen. I'll give you this night even if you're a redoubtable criminal. You didn't choose your life or your sins. I'll let you choose your death then. Sakura gets up and places the young woman's couteau next to her. Make good use of it. Sakura murmura in a soup. Karen fixa un moment Sakura. Merci. Suritel. I appreciate your kindness. Sakura gave him the mane, and Karen accepted it as a salutation. At that point, the young commissaire turns the talents. Attendes. Create the egg voice of the criminal. Sakura turns around to see Karen standing in front of the wall with his menats, the couteau pressed up to his pointet, his face covered in tears, and a big smile on his lips. Joyeux Noël. Lenkel and Riant. For the first time in decades, Sakura showed signs of happiness and fell silent as the snow began to fall on Tokyo. Sakura was contacted by phone at 6 o'clock, with the caller's name being Ino. She was excited about the announcement she was going to make to him. Sakura descended and heard her friend's voice calling out. Sakura. There has been a body found in Shibuya. It's Karen. L.S. Under the plurs, Ino's voice was heard, and Sakura said simply. Jirai Ino. Sakura gathers in a sipper and prepares herself. When Sakura arrives on the scene of the surveillance, she finds that many of these operatives were pleuring. La rencontre de son ami, les rouges, Ino vint. C'est ici viens. She guided her to the street's end. Karen was seated on the floor. Her fiery hair and pale features blended in perfectly with the blood and snow. There was a calm smile on her bluish lips. Sakura saw that she was holding a pack of smokes. The smokes she frequently smoked. Sakura sat up after stealthily putting the pack in her pocket. Take the body away, commanded Sakura. The JTR investigation is closed. Angry Kiba, who had been examining the body, lifted his head to face his supervisor. What? Are you serious? Yes, I am. No conversation. With the exception of Shadow Ninja, who stayed in the background, everyone was staring at the commissioner in disbelief. Well, given the situation, I'm dismissing the brigade for the day, Sakura declared. She gave them a nod and walked away. Furious, Kiba took hold of her arm and made her turn around. You want to close the investigation? In addition to the other victims, one of our comrades was murdered, he said. How can you remain so insensitive? Did Karen mean nothing to you? You have no heart. When Sakura didn't flinch, Kiba was going to hit her in the face, but his Naruto friend's hand stopped him. After saying to the brunette, Kiba, calm down, he turned to face the commissioner. Sakura. I also don't think it's right to close the investigation here. There could be more victims if we don't do anything. Sakura groaned and uttered the following. No more murders will occur. It's the truth, whether you believe it or not. They exchanged puzzled looks, and Sakura seized the opportunity to go. Sakura reached into her pocket and took out the pack of cigarettes she had stolen from Karen as she strolled through Tokyo's cold streets. She pulled out a lighter and struck it. The death of her secretary seemed like a decent excuse for the young policewoman, who seldom ever smoked. Sakura thought back on her recollections of the young secretary as the cigarette burned down. Karen had always been a kind, driven, and considerate person. She could still picture her moving through the brigade's offices, passing out coffee while grinning broadly and constantly saying something kind to everyone. Sakura stared up at the sky after taking a puff from the cigarette. As the snow began to fall once more, Sakura recalled that Karen had mentioned how much she enjoyed the winter. A tear ran down Sakura's cheek as the cigarette's last ash mixed with the snowflakes on the ground. It had been a while since Sakura had shed a tear. It was as though Karen had roused her from a deep slumber with his warmth and dark side. Would she regain her emotional faculties? A crumpled piece of paper was discovered as she reached inside her pocket. It must have fallen out of a cigarette pack, she realized as she unfolded it. It was written in blood. Sakura-san. I'm so glad I met you. Your mother was right. You must live. You deserve to live. Thanks to you, I can die being myself and choosing to do so. Thank you, Karen. Sakura choked back a sob and whispered. Peace be with you, Karen. She threw the note over the river after folding it into a plane. The commissioner chose to take a walk at Tsunade's cafe after wiping away her tears. As she walked into the cafe, Sakura paused in shock. Every brigade member was seated at a table. Some were dejected, others had swollen eyes, and yet others were in tears. Sakura came in and sat down after Tsunade grinned at her. Shadow Ninja told us everything, a friend of Naruto muttered. Sakura responded, as expected, and turned to face her captain. You understood too. Ninja shadows are no longer relevant. Hinata tried not to cry as she muttered, I still can't believe Karen was the killer. Sakura started by saying, Karen was both angel and demon. She became insane and resembled Jack the Ripper after her boyfriend manufactured her a perfume. The other half of her, however, was an extraordinary individual. Just because Karen was a criminal doesn't mean she should be forgotten. Recall that she took her own life in order to eradicate the shadow inside of her. Tsunade's brilliant eyes were fixed on Sakura. Her self-confidence had grown. I'm sorry, Kiba abruptly said. I got carried away earlier. I didn't know anything. Everyone was shocked to see the commissioner's face show any emotion as Sakura smiled at her. Don't apologize. You were protecting your comrade's memory, she replied. And you're right. I have no heart. Since the massacre of my village, I haven't been able to express my feelings. But with all of you, I feel alive. I tell myself that I didn't survive for nothing, Sakura said with a shaky voice. Thank you? Everyone gaped at her, unable to speak. Naruto then gave his boss a shoulder flick while grinning. You know you'd almost look cute with that smile, he said. Sakura yelled, Baka! And struck him in the back of the head. Sakura grinned once again as laughter broke out. She felt free. She was still human, even though she had slain her father in order to survive. And now she wanted to attempt living without the burden of all her deaths and without wondering why she had survived. Sakura stared up at the sky while people talked freely in the tiny cafe. It's over. I don't know if you can call it a happy ending, but it's definitely over, she said.